Okay, let's jump right into this explainer and completely unpack the massive insights that came out of the AFSA Summit. We're going to format our time together today a bit like a modern dual-feature magazine. For the first half, we're focusing on the hardware of the Air Force Sergeants Association International Convention. Those concrete legislative wins and structural advocacy efforts. Then, we're going to flip the magazine over to the software side, really diving into the deeply personal human connection and leadership lessons pulled from the Summit 360 Professional Education Development Seminars, or PEDS. AFSA International President Stephen Hurrow honestly hit the nail on the head right out of the gate. He perfectly captured the beating heart of this entire event when he simply said, "This week is all about connection." And really, it's about connecting service members and their families directly to the mission of the association, and just as crucially, connecting them to each other to share those lived experiences and build unbreakable networks. So, here is our layout for today. We'll kick things off with the AFSA Summit experience, run through their impressive advocacy and legislative wins, and recognize grassroots excellence. From there, we transition into the software of leadership with wisdom from the formers, explore resilience and human connection, and finally, look at what it truly means to be the beating heart of the force. Let's get to it. All right, Section 1, the AFSA Summit experience, building the force. Let's start with that hardware we talked about. An arena built on decades of hard-fought experience, all aiming to protect the benefits of our military families. It's absolutely essential to understand what sets this organization apart from the rest. As the 21st Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, David Wolf, pointed out during the summit, AFSA is uniquely focused on quite literally putting money in your pocket and protecting the structures that take care of you and your family for life. It is the absolute only professional organization on base with that explicit focus baked right into its mission statement. Moving right along to Section 2, advocacy and legislative wins, delivering at the kitchen table. The crucial point here is how this organization's relentless, everyday presence on Capitol Hill actually translates into massive, tangible victories for the enlisted force. I mean, just take a second to look at these wins. We're talking a 14.5% total pay raise for junior enlisted, faster basic allowance for housing adjustments for when those local markets suddenly spike, fully funded childcare and child development center operations, and a massive fix, excluding BAH from the basic needs allowance calculation, which literally ensures food security for thousands of military families. This isn't some abstract policy. This is real, immediate relief landing right on the kitchen tables of our members. But as we know, none of that happens by just sitting on the sidelines. Drawing heavily on Teddy Roosevelt, Chief Anthony Brinkley passionately contrasted the critics with the participants. The spectators, well, they're all talk, they fake it, they make excuses. But the participants are unassuming. They're the ones who actually get down in the arena, faces marred with dust and sweat, doing the hard work that actually needs to be done to fight for these legislative wins. Which brings us to Section 3, recognizing grassroots excellence, the power of the people. Because those massive legislative wins, they always start at the local level. 1,356. That astonishing number represents the total members recruited by just one single chapter, Chapter 65-2 out of Keesler Air Force Base. They have set the absolute gold standard for organizational excellence. It just goes to show you that massive policy shifts simply don't happen without the grassroots dedication of individual chapters putting in the grueling, day-to-day work on the ground to amplify the association's voice. And all of this builds into highly actionable power in Washington. As Chief Perez noted, information is currency, right? When you share your raw, boots-on-the-ground reality regarding quality of life issues, like TRICARE access or navigating the Exceptional Family Member Program, that information becomes the exact currency AFSA lobbyists use to purchase political capital and force congressional action. Your local stories are literally the fuel for the engine. Turning the page to Section 4, wisdom from the formers, decades of leadership. Okay, we are now shifting into the second half of our magazine layout, the Summit 360 PEDS, where we move away from the hardware of legislation and boot up the software of human leadership. Imagine having generations of the top enlisted leaders all on one stage together. The formers panel brought together the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 16th, 18th, and 19th Chief Master Sergeants of the Air Force. And sure, they playfully jabbed at each other a bit, but they also dropped some incredible, completely unfiltered, career-altering knowledge for the next generation of leaders in that room. The profound simplicity of Chief Kelethwright's advice really stood out here. He specifically urged the audience not to be transactional, because once you take that uniform off, it's not your rank that defines you. It's your genuine relationships.
Our force is simply way too small to burn bridges. Your community and your lasting legacy are built entirely on how you treat people.
And that flows perfectly into Section 5, Resilience and Human Connection, checking on your wingman. This really builds into the emotional core of the entire summit. Chief Brinkley dropped a really heavy reality check on the audience with this number. 8,000 Americans die daily, and that mortality rate is driven heavily by suicides, drug overdoses, and despair. He used this powerful statistic to reinforce an undeniable truth. Leaders absolutely must be the true first responders for our airmen and their families. People are out there struggling in plain sight, and we cannot afford to just look the other way. To combat this, Brinkley used a brilliant analogy straight from basic training: mark time. Organizations must occasionally stop their relentless forward movement just to evaluate their current state. You have to check the formation to see who is out of step, who might be hiding their wounds. And pay close attention to your high performers, because they are notorious for masking their struggles. Only after the team is truly aligned and supported do you order them to march forward. He then challenged every single leader with this powerful question: what is the lasting residue you leave on people's lives? Think about it for a second. When you interact with someone, are you planting a seed that helps them grow? There should be undeniable, positive evidence of your leadership in the lives of the sons and daughters entrusted to your care. That is your lasting residue. And, that residue matters deeply when the pressure is on. During the Leading Under Fire presentation, chiefs reflected on incredibly tough operations like Epic Fury. Whether an airman is navigating a deeply personal crisis at home or holding the line during intense kinetic combat operations, true resilience is forged long before the crisis actually hits. It's built through accountability and genuine, persistent check-ins by leaders who actually care. Finally, we reach Section 6, the beating heart, refining your character. To close out our explainer today, we're looking at the ultimate takeaway that ties both the hardware and the software together. This quote from Undersecretary of the Air Force Matthew Lohmeyer brilliantly crystallizes the entire summit. He looked directly at the enlisted leaders and told them that they are the beating heart of the Air Force. Without the enlisted force actively maintaining its health, its education, and consistently refining its character, the entire machine simply grinds to a halt. The hardware of legislation desperately needs the software of your personal development to actually function. So the crucial point comes down to you. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to really chew on. If you are the beating heart of the force, what specific actions are you taking today to refine your character, to check your formation, and to leave a truly positive residue on those you lead? Take that back to your units. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.